Audio Content Lab.
Welcome to Sounds Like Marketing, the audio content marketing podcast that's here to dial businesses and brands into the importance of sound. I'm Jake Sanders with my co-host Paul Julius, and today we're talking about audio direction with Dani Valkova. We touch on the power of audio to connect people, dive into segmentation and personalization, talk about AI as a tool to help get work done faster, and we learn that silence can be one of the most powerful tools to use in the audio arsenal. It's a fantastic interview, so let's get to it.
Sounds like
Marketing.
It sounds like marketing.
Dani Valkova is an audio director, sound designer, and composer who is passionate about working with immersive audio to elevate narratives and brands. She specializes in audio direction and strategic composition for linear and interactive media. Dani has worked with an insane amount of heavyweight brands and companies, and she's here today to talk about audio direction. Dani, welcome to the show.
Hi, both. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited about this conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for working with our schedule stuff. This has been in the works for a while, but we're glad you're here. So I came across you on LinkedIn, and I was just instantly transfixed with this audio direction because I'm working in sound and music. You're like, boy, we could use a director, and there you are. So could you summarize the role of an audio director? What are you doing? How are you handling it? What are the barriers? What are the benefits? Those kind of things.
For sure. Well, Jake, actually, I think you touched right there in that question, one of the main roles. If I had to summarize the role of the audio director in one word, it would actually be the translator, or the conduit, if you will, between cross departments, different disciplines, but also both internally and through the client. So in the end, basically, what an audio director tries to achieve is a cohesive strategy from the start of the brief right up until the delivery, and how audio plays an important role in supporting the overall project.
Mm-hmm.
That starts right at the beginning, right? So understanding what the client needs are, the goals of the project, and then translating those and what that means in terms of audio and music. And where can we place sound to have the most impact? So there's that creative element, but also on top of that, once we do have that overall strategy in mind, it's the technological considerations as well. What platform are we working with? What are the strengths of that platform?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we use sound in a way that supports the end result in the most impactful way?
And I mean, I would assume some of those barriers come from dealing with the account people and then, folks within your own team. Like, what are some of those common kind of, not pitfalls, but sort of rough moments? Like, can you explain some of those things? Like, you have all this technological know-how, you have creative application, but what are you kind of fighting with people about?
Oh, and that's like that's certainly something to consider from the beginning. I like to think about things in the sense that everybody that's on our projects, be it from our internal teams, the client, everyone that's involved, actually, at the end of the day, we all have the same common goal, and that's to make the most impactful project possible under our time and budget and technological constraints.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If we all boil down all of our individual or team interests, it boils down to that one common goal. And when I'm dealing with these challenges, say with time or with budget, I always try and bring the conversation back to that common goal and allow the strategies to evolve depending on the time, the budget, where the priorities are, the technological constraints. But let's tie it back to the fact that we're all here for one purpose, and that is to find a way to create an impact for our audience.
That is amazing. And it kind of leads into this next question. A lot of people get frustrated, being creative, being musicians, getting into advertising or, working in marketing. They think it's a creative thing, but it ends up, the way you're explaining it, it's like there's a lot of project management stuff, and you do both of those things. How did you blend these two, the creative side and then the project management side? How did you blend those into your current trajectory as audio director, and what inspired you to embark on the crossover?
Yeah, for sure. I guess that kind of takes us right back. And to get to this point in time, there's been a lot of influences over the years and how I've seen audio, sound, and music impact us and impact my own life over many years. And to take it right back, I would say the story probably started when I was much younger. So I was born in Bulgaria, but I relocated to Australia when I was very young. And with that came learning a new language, being part of a new society, understanding new cultural norms, all of that jazz as a very young girl and only child.
Mm.
And at that time, I found myself finding so much comfort and sense of connection at a time when connection was a scarce resource in music and in sound. And it gave me so much comfort, and it showed me the impact that sound and music can have on our mental and emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I got older and I ended up going to law school after school, and that course was quite tough. And I realized quite early on that it wasn't something that was aligned with my passions, but I could still foresee that there is a benefit in having this like law school and business school experience in what I wanted to achieve with music. So I went to law school and business school during the day, and I went to audio engineering school in the evenings and did all three concurrently.
Wow.
And once I graduated, there were these three facets of experience that had evolved, and each one taught me how to think in its own unique way. And it wasn't until finding a way to blend how much I believe that music can impact us, how much I believe in it. If it wasn't for the business and the legal background, it wouldn't have shown me the potential for us to solve so many bigger picture problems by combining the creative vision and the creative execution with that business and legal knowledge as well.
Mm-hmm. And then, so like, speak about music real quick. Like, you're playing what, piano? Like, what's your first introduction to that? What instrument got you inspired?
Yeah, piano, of course. It's such a foundational instrument.
Yeah.
And from that point, when I moved into a lot of electronic-based production, that the knowledge of music theory and the knowledge of playing the piano lends itself to being able to work with so many virtual instruments. So out of that piano knowledge, we had such creative freedom to design incredible soundscapes just by having familiarity with the piano.
Yes, exactly right. MIDI. It's boy, that's a deep rabbit hole to fall in.
That's right. I've heard they have some pretty good oboe sounds.
Don't say that. Don't say that,
Yeah.
Paul.
I know. So I wanted to ask though, you have, I mean, just listening to your background and talking about what you do, you must have done hundreds of projects and being in different roles, like you were talking about from the business side, the legal side, all these different perspectives that you have when you look at something. I mean, what do you think makes or breaks a project?
That's a good question. And I wish that there was a magic formula where we're like, if we go down this route, it'll make it. If we go down this route, it'll break it. Essentially, what we're discussing here is how can we align ourselves with success from the get-go? What do we need to avoid further down the line so that we can have a project that makes it? And if I had to boil it down, there's a couple of elements which are very broad, but it's very simple. The right experience on the right platform at the right time. Sounds simple, but it ain't easy. So that's it. So the right experience, the right user experience on the right platform. So the place, the where, and the right time, the when. So the what, the where, and the when. What's missing from here is the why. And to me, the one thing that steers success in any project, any company, it's not even just about projects, is understanding the why. Why are we doing this? Have clear goals of what we want to achieve with that project from the beginning. Understand how we're going to measure those goals, because the measurement of what success looks like depends on the goals we want. There are different measurements depending on the goals. And then finally, have a deep understanding and curiosity as well. Ask all the questions. What are the drivers and the needs of the audience that we want participating in our projects? We want to impact them. We want to connect with them. What drives them? What motivates them? What are they looking for? What are their problems? What are their stresses? And then where are they hanging out? Where, when, why? And then let's build out our strategy on how to connect with them based on our understanding of their goals, their connections, their priorities, their fears, and then tie that back to the goals of the project.
So a quick follow on that. Kind of talking about earlier when you were saying you're kind of like trying to understand what the client needs and be a conduit and stuff like that. But is there do you run into a gap there a lot? Because I think at least in our experience, a lot of clients, they don't know. They know they want something, they
Mm.
don't know what. And then they're like, well, I don't know if I like it. I don't know if people are gonna laugh at me. Like, is there is there like a little hand holding and stuff that goes on there sometimes? Or, are you able to just kind of clearly define these things and people just get it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paul. I think it's important for us to understand that we as professional people in the audio realm, the way that we identify solutions is up to our expertise. It's not up to our clients to be able to say, well, this is the kind of music I want, or even if they want music. So when we talk about understanding the goals of the project or understanding the priorities of our clients, it's a bit more macro rather than asking them to define what kind of sounds, genres, styles, how many tracks, where. That's for us to offer that as the solution and to understand that as a breakdown from the core goal. So I'll give an example here. So say the core goal of a project is to get people excited about a new product launch. That is up to us to understand what the key demographic that will be interacting with that experience, and different platforms obviously have different key demographics that we're appealing to. The
Mhm.
key demographic, what gets them excited?
Mm.
And then what does the user journey look like? Do we want to get them excited from the minute they jump into the app or the experience? Or is there something further down the line where we want to build this sense of anticipation and then drop the excitement right at the moment that the project or the product is revealed? All of those kind of questions are going to steer the way that we use sound.
Mm. And
And
okay, go ahead.
no, that's it.
Oh, well then it leads into this thought about segmentation of audio creative. Like you're talking about, there's different types of communities and maybe they have different motivations or behaviors. Are you adjusting things for different markets? I mean, do you have an experience where you've had to like create one masterpiece and then sort of break it up into smaller pieces? So like somebody in Spain, somebody in Germany, somebody in the UK, like have you ever had to kind of like straddle that and make something interesting? Like the German people probably want, I don't know, accordion. I there's probably some German people being like, there's other instruments. But okay, glockenspiel. But have you ever had to, kind of take one master thesis and break it up into smaller things? And how do you maintain that connection with the core goal?
For sure. The master thesis down into compartments is more on a project wide level rather
Mhm.
than working down into segmentation, looking at different demographics or different IPs when you log in is going to trigger a different type of musical experience.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. So it's more about how do we distill down the core goals for the project overall rather than creating a separate experience depending on what region you're participating in. Uh,
Mm.
One thing to keep in mind is a lot of these projects, the driver is connection, right? Building communities, building connection.
Mhm.
And that's really important. So keeping things in a way that how you're interacting with the app is similar to the way that somebody else is engaging with it, or the experience that they're having somewhere else in the world is one way that we build connection.
Mm.
Uh, think of it this way. You go to a concert and that is a 3D environment, it's a 3D space.
Right.
And as you move around the concert floor, you will have a slightly different experience. If you're in the middle of the dance floor, say if it's like a dance environment, and you're right in the middle front of house, you're going to have a very intense experience that's focused right on the music.
Mm.
Whereas if you're standing out to the sides, you're standing closer to the bar, then the music will soften, and then that'll give you space to have more conversations with your friends, meet new people. So that's the way that we can start thinking about sound that's adaptive to the user, rather than changing the music that's coming out from the stage.
Oh, that is amazing. And it's still a centralizing purpose. And I think a lot of micro segmentation, personalization, hyper personalization. A lot of advertising and marketing folks are just plucking that string. Like, I just want to know everything about you. Like, you had a dog you loved, like, you had a cat, your grandma, like, and just being on the marketing side, you're like, is this really going to help you sell a better ad? Like, can you kind of speak, maybe? I think you said an amazing metaphor about the concert experience, but can you kind of riff a little bit on this focus on hyper personalization and how you see that playing out?
Yeah, for sure. With this one, I would invite us to consider a slightly different definition of hyper personalization. And rather than us as creators dictating that personalization, changing gears, changing the table around, and putting the user in the driver's seat. So
Mm.
they're in charge of their personalization, not
Mm,
us.
yup, 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 my brain just fell out of my ear. Um, I wait a minute, hold on. That makes too much sense, Danny. Um, if you're running for office, I'm voting for you. Uh,
Right?
that was
I'll have
that.
for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Have your people reach out to my people. No, that is brilliant.
I mean, yeah, and on top, I mean, you've worked with so many different things. Like, I was doing research for this, and I found an article where you worked on a haptic suit for
Correct.
I mean, that's remarkable. Like, and it's super forward thinking of the company and everything. So I'm really curious, like, who are the companies and brands that you think understand and really prioritize like sound and audio in their marketing, and what makes that unique?
So with this question, that's a really good way to think about it. Like, where are we putting a focus on sound and music? Where are which companies, which brands are prioritizing this as a way to steer connection and steer impact? It's a hard question to answer because it all depends on the type of activation.
Mm,
So one activation might be really impactful, but perhaps the timing was slightly off, or there were situations or circumstances outside of control, say during the COVID pandemic or something, that perhaps has changed the way that a particular project could have been received,
mm,
little bits and pieces like that. So rather than us having a think about what companies or what brands are really prioritizing sound, we could perhaps take it out a notch, zoom out a level, and have a think about what kind of companies and brands are empowering us to be more innovative with sound,
mm,
and what makes them unique. And with that, one company jumps out. I started working with them. The first project I had under their platform was back in 2018, 2019. And they were incredibly innovative in the way that AR was starting to be integrated and implemented in web AR.
mhm,
This company is called Eighth Wall. They recently now a part of the Niantic family as of March 2022. But I remember back in late 2018, 2019, they were incredibly innovative and unique by the way that they were able to get AR in the hands of anybody that had access to a mobile device. As long as web AR was supported on your device, so things like gyroscope, as long as you had that enabled, then you were able to experience the very early adopters of AR. And part of that unlocked so many new opportunities for us to be creative in the way that we used sound. And over the years, Eighth Wall have added more and more features. The experiences have become incredibly deep, rich. We're able to tell stories, and we're able to reach our audience at scale because the barriers to entry of AR have been lowered as a result of Eighth Wall's integration.
Wow. And I'm looking at it right now. Wow. There is so many cool things. But
Yeah.
I think maybe just speak to the average. So it makes me think, oh wow. If I have a bunch of AR, a bunch of developers, a bunch of access and, entertainment dollars, I'm going to go hard on sound. I'm going to make sound a priority. But normal marketers with normal products are not thinking about this. It seems like this is only for something Steven Spielberg would do. Or it's like, yeah, it'd be nice we could get John Williams, but like what's your thoughts to people who are just kind of sitting around doing their average marketing mix? Why should they get into sound?
Okay. I would ask them, next time you watch a horror movie, watch it on mute
Mm.
and tell me if it's as impactful as you expected. Or play them the Netflix sound file at the beginning
Right.
and ask them to name the brand.
Uh, yeah, but it's so obvious. And I mean, my question is, sing a jingle from your childhood that you remember seeing on like on commercial television, and everyone has an example. There is always an earworm, but when it comes to marketing their own thing, they don't think about it. Why don't they think about it? Like what? Just kind of riff on that. Why do you think more marketers aren't leaning into sound?
I think there's a traditional historical approach that sound is the last cab off the rank.
Yeah, hey,
And yeah, yeah. And
we know that, Danny. We know that. At the
yeah,
end of a movie, they're like, "Ooh, yeah, we need a soundtrack."
for sure, for sure. And one of my core missions is to try and change the conversation around this
Mhm.
and have audio something that's integrated from a much earlier standpoint
Yes.
because it forms such a big part of the end result and the way that we create impact and the way that we connect to our audience. So to riff on that, what are some ways that we can start changing this narrative? Let's add audio earlier on in the conversation. Let's
Mm.
introduce audio as part of the core creative team to facilitate the creative execution from an earlier point. Don't save it till the end when everything's done and dusted and we're scrambling around.
Well, and this made me think, have you ever worked with this seems like a good problem to have, but somebody wanted to put too much audio, too much sound. There's like it's too busy. Have you ever had to step in there and be like, "Hey, we don't need this xylophone," or you know what I mean?
Jake, that's such an important thing. It happens all the time.
Really?
And
Oh,
there's
wow.
absolutely nothing wrong with this conversation. And as audio professionals, it's important for us to understand that where we have sound is just as valuable and just as crucial as where we have moments in silence.
Mhm.
And us understanding what calls for sound and what calls for silence so that we can create that contrast. We can create more impact when there is sound is part of understanding the goals that we spoke about earlier. Understanding the core goals, what is the most important part of this application of this experience? Where do we want to draw the most impact, the most attention? Where are we calling for presence? And then have a think about how lightness and dark works. Just like a painting, all of the negative space is just as important as all of the places that we have color. Audio is exactly the same.
Man, so thinking about space, that actually leads really well into the next question here. A space that doesn't exist except virtually. Like, there's a
Mhm.
ton of trends in advertising right now that are geared towards, metaverse, artificial intelligence, chat, GP, all this stuff. And people are just foaming for it. How do you think audio production and marketing will be affected at all? If at all, in the metaverse and in AI? Like, how does having this three-dimensional fake realm how do we channel this? How do we use space in a space that has no space?
Yeah, for sure. Well, all of these tools actually are looking to solve different problems. So the way that audio is going to be affected and how we can use it effectively really depends on what is the problem that each one of them is trying to solve. So, for example, we think about something like Roblox and the community that that's building is a very, very different type of business model and solutions that it's offering than if we think about an AI tool that helps sort your music library based on a particular mood, feel, etc. So those are offering two different solutions to two different problems. So the way that we're impacted as audio professionals is dependent on which specific tool we're looking at. But overall, all of these new next gen technologies have a couple of qualities that are common to all. First one is interactivity is king. Interactivity is the next frontier, and how we look at audio as something adaptive and interactive is imperative for us as audio professionals as we move into adoption of next gen technology. And the second one is what we discussed earlier, which is the user is in the driver's seat always.
Mm, mm.
Us talking, communicating at an audience, us sharing the vision for a brand is now no longer a one-way conversation. And audio will incredibly be impacted by that, but it will also help shape that conversation in a very, very powerful way.
And rap about AI music generators. I mean, there's people out there saying, well, I can just type in a nice little sentence and get a nice little piece of music, and I don't have to mess around with Dani and her synthesizers.
Or I mean, there's other ones too where it'll use AI. Like if it's a minute long and you only need 40 seconds, it'll AI that thing, into its own mix and stuff like that. It's weird.
And so, I mean, those are, and to her earlier thing, two different, problems, two different solutions. I mean,
Yeah.
the tech is here to do a multitude of things, but like, Dani, what do you think about this? Are the robots coming for our jobs?
I think that there's a sense of inevitability in AI playing a bigger role in our lives,
Mm,
uh, and us understanding how that impacts us. Not, it doesn't have to be a negative thing. We can look at it through the lens of how is this helping me be more efficient? What sort of solutions is this offering to my day-to-day workflow? Where can I put more focus and more of my time in somewhere where I can create greater impact and save time on somewhere else? So it's more about realigning our priorities in the way that we use time. But I think there's absolutely still a place for human ingenuity. Absolutely. It's just more about merging that with the potential and the power and the impact of digital worlds and us moving into a more fluid reception and connection with reality. And to talk on that a little bit earlier when we were discussing the metaverse
mhm,
and future tech, with those fluid places of reality,
mhm,
it is up to us to decide how audio and music interacts with it. And to me, that is incredibly exciting, incredibly exciting.
mm,
We're setting new understandings and new interactions with a reality that doesn't even exist yet. We're shaping it as we speak. And what would that sound like? How would audio interact in that space when we're no longer limited by physical constraints, physics, time, space? They're all malleable concepts to us.
mm.
And there's a place of creativity there that is unlocked to us in the future that is for the first time in human history. And absolutely, our role in that is to help shape and define what that feels like, how we connect, how we learn, how we reach wellness as well. All of these are unlocking new opportunities, not just for brands, but for us as individuals in our education, in our well-being as well.
Mm. Well, and something that's missing is one of the examples. It was a Google AI music generator, and the prompt was, music and space and sort of like light reggaeton music, and I was like, oh yeah, that's what I want to hear when I'm in space. But I think it was missing something And what you're saying about this experience, the users are in the driver's seat. You need to run these things just like ChatGPT the way you read and ingest information and then bounce that across your experiences as a human. Those same things are happening with audio, but AI is never going to be able to lend that human touch. And, one of the things that I thought was missing was like the spatial kind of reverb aspect. Like there was just space missing in the example that was created by the AI. And it made me think the way we experience sound is important to the way we then turn it around and help other people experience that sound. And do you riff on could you riff on that for a little bit and just kind of talk about that human experience of audio?
Yeah, I mean, audio is contextual as much
Mhm.
as it is about us sitting and listening to a song. If we play one song, even between the three of us, we will have inevitably some songs that conjure different memories for a different individual, and they'll feel different to us. And that is also put into context depending on where we listen to it. To mention what you said about reverb, especially as we're moving more into an immersive space and audio is now taken away from our headphones, is starting to engage in 3D space,
Mhm.
that changes the way that we hear those audio qualities. And we need to be able to account for that, AI or otherwise, in order to maximize the impact. We need to optimize the sound and the audio for our listening experiences, be it outside in a noisy street, in our living room, or in our headphones. So how do we solve some of those problems? And is AI the solution here?
Well, is it? You left me hanging.
That's the
Well, is it,
question.
Danny?
That's the question. I think a lot of us are trying to answer that. But at the end of the day, the questions are just as important as the answers. And unlocking new tech and how audio interacts with that new tech is all about asking the right questions and having that source of create curiosity to
Yeah.
continue to ask.
Oh man. Well, and in our interfaces, in getting this scheduled, you were recently awarded the Women in Leadership Scholarship to attend one of the highest rated business schools in the world. The way you speak about this is it's a mix of passion, expertise, and sort of there's just this kind of diplomacy around the way you talk. And I would assume that's just a byproduct of your experience. So you've risen to these positions of leadership throughout your career. How would you define leadership, and why do you think that that's an important concept for listeners, creative folks to kind of get under their belts?
For sure. I think leadership is it's not reserved for business schools or doing a leadership course. Leadership is something that's inherent to us all. And it's a quality that we can lean in on in so many different
Mm,
situations, be it in our households, not just at work, but in our households, in our friendship circles. And the type, when we think about like the what defines a leader is also quite dependent on where, when, and why.
mm,
So, good leader in a time of crisis is exemplifying qualities in a very, very different sense than a good leader when you're trying to rally the troops to make sure that you don't miss the taxi on the way to the event.
mhm,
But it's still leadership.
mm,
So the way that I would boil it down, if I could boil down leadership, regardless of context, into three words, it would be action through empathy. I'll break that down.
yes.
Action, we need leadership is nothing if it doesn't result in some action, be it from yourself or from the people around you. There's always this sense of propelling us forward, and often in times when the results are unknown. So,
Mm,
having courage, action through courage, especially having the courage to take action, even if the results are unknown.
mm,
But how do you know what direction that action should be in? And that's where the element of empathy comes in. So, understanding your environment, understanding the people around you, understanding their priorities, their concerns, and letting that steer the direction of that action.
mm,
And I think this is something that we can take. It doesn't matter if we're audio professionals, if we're at home with our families.
mm.
It's the concept of leadership is something that we can exemplify on a day-to-day basis, regardless. regardless of our work or position or role in our teams.
It just seems like the sensitivity, which empathy is this being sensitive to other things, but sometimes no, you got to grab the bull by the horns,
Yeah.
and that's that action piece. But I love that you're pairing those two together, because that's when it really starts mattering. I don't know. Maybe was that a question? I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just a
Yeah, for
statement.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I think over the years, the one thing that I've learned is just the most valuable thing as a leader, the most powerful thing that we can do as a leader is ask the question, help me understand. Help me
Mm,
understand.
mm, mm.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to do, and I think I know Jake and I have definitely been working on a project or something and had to stop for a minute and be like, wait a minute, what if we were them? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
how would you respond? Like, sometimes it's okay to just stop for a minute and be like, I got to take off this hat and put on that hat. Or what if I didn't
Right.
know anything about this at all? Like, how would I perceive that?
Right.
Like, I think sometimes that's just kind of like simple empathy, but it's the truth. Like, just ask yourself, wait a minute, what if I was them? Like, how would I feel about this? Is this working? Just because I know what it's about, does everybody? I don't know.
So spot on. And that actually plays a role in the way that we approach our sound and music strategies as well. What if we were them? What if we were the audience? How would they perceive this experience? How would they perceive these visuals? Can I lean into that and help steer the genre, the style, the era influence to
Mm.
help have greater impact? So that help me understand isn't just from our team for our team members and our fellow teams, but also help me understand that end user. Who am I trying to connect with, and what are their priorities?
Yeah. All right. So to distill this down, what is your one piece of advice to the audience when it comes to audio direction and sound in marketing?
Always be curious.
Mm.
Always be curious. Always ask questions. Questions are always more important than having the answers. Having questions will always be more powerful than having all the answers. Nobody has all the answers, but us asking each other questions, trying to understand the struggles and the priorities of our end user, of our clients. What are their goals? What success looks like to them? What a good experience looks like to them? How can we connect? All of those kind of questions. Always be curious. Have an insatiable sense of curiosity. On that, always be curious also about what's going on in the world that impacts us as audio professionals. What is the new technology that's coming in? What are the new platforms? What are the future problems that we anticipate, looking at data sets and extrapolating out trajectories of trends? How can I start preparing myself for those future problems now? That insatiable sense of curiosity, let that be your guiding force in any area, be it towards your clients or towards your users.
I'm just like crying. You're so wonderful. I just feel absolutely lucky to be a part of this, to listen to you explain all this amazing thing, and then just to get a sense of your brain and your heart as you apply it to a creative, seemingly, like you just said, it's the last thing people think about, but it's the first thing that you're putting your whole self towards. So we are just so lucky to have you on here and to be connected. And if people want to learn more about you and connect online, how can they do that, Dani?
Easiest way is LinkedIn. Super simple, Dani Valkova at LinkedIn. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with you all. And Jake and Paul, this has been such a wonderful chat. Thank you very much for the invitation.
Time for a sound quiz.
Are you ready?
Ready?
What's your favorite sound in the world? Your most favorite sound?
My most favorite sound. It would probably be, oh, this is so cheesy, but probably the sound of my partner when he picks up the phone when I call him and he says my name. I know.
Love will keep us together. Captain and Tennille had told us that. Okay, well, on a related note, what is your least favorite sound?
It's the sound of silence when my cat is in the other room because I know she's up to mischief.
Oh man. man. Yeah.
These
I can relate
questions,
to that.
these questions are always so good because everybody
Dude,
has.
I'm telling you, there's quiet and then there's too quiet. You know
Uh,
what
Yeah,
I
that's
mean?
too quiet. That's my least favorite sound is too quiet.
Okay. But
Everybody
but
has
I'm
the best answers.
I'm actually
for these.
really, really glad that you answered that, and you'll understand now. I'm always nervous when I put these sound quizzes together, but I think I did okay here. So first sound.
It's a cat purring.
Boom.
It also
Okay.
sounded like some weird futuristic heart computer thing. But yeah, it was a cat purring. So
Yeah, that's the literal answer, but we could definitely think about things in a more like abstract way. This
Oh.
could be a very futuristic UFO device that's coming in and out of our universe.
yes,
you know?
yes,
You know,
yes, yes,
we-
yes, yes.
We got absolutely schooled in one interview by someone who was like a professor of sound and neurology. And she
Oh.
was like, without context, it means nothing. It was like the flattest thing. I
Yep.
was like, yeah, you're right.
You're
Okay.
absolutely right. Just like Danny said, it's all
Yeah.
contextual. Anyway.
It could
Yeah,
be.
it's so
So,
context-
yeah. All right. We're 1 for 1. Here comes number 2.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Literal answer, it's a measuring tape being shut. Like
Man.
She's an expert, bro. We are
I
not ready for
know.
this. People aren't ready
I
for
know.
Danny.
but more abstract. It's an alien that is jumping through a wormhole and then disappearing.
Oh my God.
Both correct. Ah,
Uh-oh.
started the next one. Hold on. Come here, you. Okay.
That would be me as a left-handed person, very vigorously trying to write neatly on a piece of cardboard.
That sound effect was just called writing. So that's,
Okay,
you're
great.
3 for 3. You crushed this.
Woo!
Sound a narrative.
I thought it was an eraser, and I was like, how much mistakes has this person made? Like, you're erasing the whole page here.
Yeah. I can, as a left-handed person, I can definitely relate to the sense of urgency and desperation in those marks.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Sounds Like Marketing is a production of Audio Content Lab. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you find your podcasts, and follow Audio Content Lab for the latest in sound marketing advice. Until next time. Audio Content Lab.